Jura is one of the strongest characters we've ever seen in this universe. There is no doubt about it. Being able to contend with an above Jigen level entity is no small feat, but that doesn't mean he's unbeatable. In fact, there's currently a character on the battlefield that has the power to end this battle immediately, and his name is Kawaki. You see, this has been on my mind ever since chapter 23 when Kawaki snuck upon Jura. He was able to pierce him with his rod before he was able to perceive him. This of course reminded us of when Boruto stomped on Code's face in chapter 1 of Two Blue Vortex. It's kind of a similar situation. The difference here is that while Boruto was stronger and faster than Code, Kawaki should be weaker than Jura. And even if one wants to argue that Kawaki is faster than Jura, he shouldn't be blitz levels above him. Which simply means that Kawaki didn't just fly over there to Jura and then pierce him before he could perceive him. He definitely used his ability to shrink to a very small size, which prevented Jura from being able to detect him. This of course is very important because Kawaki has another dojutsu ability which everyone seems to have forgotten about, and that of course is Daikokuten. This allows him to send anyone and anything to a dimension where time doesn't flow, freezing them in place, which means that Kawaki could of course send Jura to that location to win the battle. And this of course, by the way, could have been done in this very moment while Kawaki was in this shrunken state. He could have teleported Jura to that dimension instead of trying to pierce him with the rod. And by the way, I'm not gonna knock Kawaki for this because of course, one would assume, and it is logical to assume, that stabbing someone through the head with a rod would kill them. Now I'm sure someone is going to say, well kiddo, Kawaki was in a shrunken state, so he couldn't have used Daikokuten while already using Sukinai Kona. And to that I say, you are wrong. I know some of you guys probably thought I was gonna say, you're right, because that's what I usually say. But no, you're wrong, because Boruto actually did this in chapter 78, I believe, when he tried to capture Boruto. We know this because after Boruto absorbed the portal itself, Kawaki then returned to his normal state, which means that he was shrunken. Which also means that he can use both abilities at the same time. So Kawaki at this point in the story is walking around with an ability to one-shot 100% of the characters in the universe, at least to his knowledge. And the reason why I say that is because it could be the case that some characters have some immunity to time freeze and they might not be frozen when he sends them to that dimension. This of course is also important to mention because I'm sure someone is gonna argue, yo, why would Kawaki send Jura to the dimension that has Naruto when Naruto is Jura's target? It doesn't make sense. And again, to that I say, you are correct, that doesn't make sense, I'm gonna say that. But also, Kawaki did try to send Boruto to that dimension where Naruto was, despite knowing that Momoshiki wants to kill Naruto, so he literally already did what we're saying that it would be stupid to do. And the reason why he's trying to kill Boruto at this point is because he can't send him there because every time he tries to, Boruto absorbs it. Although that might be an option at this point since Boruto can't use the Karma Seal, so Kawaki, think about it. Hold on, Kawaki might have actually thought about this already because based on what he said in the flash forward scene, he's trying to send Boruto where the 7th is, which is in Daikokuten. So maybe Kawaki is actually thinking like me, yo, you can't use the Karma Seal, so I'm gonna send you there now because you can't absorb the portal. And this might actually explain why Kawaki was surprised in that scene when Boruto went on to activate the Karma Seal he shouldn't be able to use. Very interesting. But yeah, this is about Kawaki and Jura, so let's get off that tangent. The point I'm trying to make here is that Kawaki can use that ability to take care of Jura if it gets to that point. And even though we have moved past this point in the chapter where he could have used it, he could still go on to use it later on. He could shrink again and then try to surprise Jura. And to our knowledge, Jura doesn't have the ability to absorb jutsu or chakra, and he hasn't used it despite the abilities that have been used against him. And also, we have no reason to believe that Jura knows what that jutsu is or what it does. So even if Kawaki was to spawn the portal on Jura, why would he try to dodge it or try to escape it? He has no idea what it does. And based on what we've seen in character for Jura, he likes taking damage for some reason. Like, he'll just allow people to hit him with jutsus because he feels like he can take it. And this might be a case where he literally does that. Oh, this jutsu is not going to damage me, and then he just teleports him to Daikokuten. You know, it could work. It's similar to when Boruto surprised Ishiki with the portal to send him away. It seems as if once the portal covers enough of the person's body, they can't do anything to escape it. And I'm sure no one thinks that Karma V1 Boruto is anywhere near Ishiki level. So Kawaki can still be weaker than Jura and be able to trap him in the portal if he catches him off guard. Now this brings me to the power section, because I'm sure some people argue that Jura is simply just too strong for Kawaki to capture him using Daikokuten. He's just gonna brute force out of the portal, which, as I explained, Ishiki didn't do it, which means by some mechanic the portal traps the person and prevents them from physically moving away unless they have the power to absorb it. The next option is to say that Part 1 Karma V1 Boruto is somehow stronger or as strong as Ishiki, which means this portal was just too strong for Ishiki to brute force from it, which I'm sure most people don't agree with, but let me know in the comment section, of course. With that said, there's also something else everyone seems to be forgetting about, which is the fact that Kawaki isn't even in his strongest form. Like, this version 1 state is far weaker than version 2, which of course is when they have the horn protruding from their skin. Boruto is far stronger in that state, and Kawaki is far stronger in that state as well. Which is why I think it has to be the case that Jura is either holding back significantly or maybe hasn't tapped into his true power because he doesn't know that it's there. Because there's no way base Boruto is pulling off the feats that he was doing, actually contending with Jura, and then we have base Kawaki doing what he did, surprising Jura, and now we have Karma 1 Kawaki contending with Jura based on the spoilers that we saw. We covered that a few days ago. But we're supposed to believe that Kawaki can't beat him by himself, even though he hasn't even touched the peak of his power. Though there's the argument that they don't have the horn state anymore that someone did mention, and all that power pretty much coalesced into the version 1 state, which would explain why Kawaki went to get a power up instead of trying to use that form against Jura, and also why they didn't use those forms in the endgame based on the flash forward scene. So I think the argument could be made that Kawaki simply knew that the form wouldn't work against Jura based on him getting knocked out by 2 hits in version 1, and it could also explain the flash forward scene by saying that they simply haven't gone into their strongest forms as yet. So this isn't a concrete theory by any means whatsoever, but it is a possibility. That's what I will say. So it is a possibility that we never see those horned states again, and based on what Kawaki does in this fight in his V1 state, that is the cap of his power. Now this is the fun part. I do wonder, and this kind of takes us back to the entire Thanos versus Ant-Man theory back in 2019, because if we're being serious here, if we're using all our options, Kawaki could simply shrink down to a very small size, fly into Jura's ear like Ishiki did to Jigen, and then find this Thorn Soul bulb and just rip it out of his body from the inside. And this seems to be possible based on the fact that Ryu was able to literally remove his Thorn Soul from his body and use it as bait for Team 7, which implies that the Thorn Soul is literally inside of them somewhere, maybe the heart or something. Although it could be the case that wasn't a Thorn Soul and he just kind of replicated it using his sand. I do think it's kind of weird since it had the white spikes on it and the Renegon, so, you know, maybe. Although Gar's sand has always been magic no jutsu since he was able to transform it into skin and also into different clothing with different colors, and there was no poof or smoke. He just literally formed a sand shield and it just slowly turned into different things. So hey, maybe Shinki can do the same thing with his sand. But of course, headcanon aside, if it is the case that the Thorn Soul is there inside their bodies, Kawaki can simply crawl inside, find it, and then return to his normal size, thus destroying Jura's body from the inside. There's also the option to do something similar to what Ishiki did to Jigen, which is to connect his body to his brain like a parasite, maybe using his scientific ninja tool hand, and then control Jura from the inside. I know it sounds crazy, okay, but it's a possibility, okay, it's a possibility, that's all it is. But yeah, that's it for the video. If you guys have any thoughts on it, do you think this is just crazy yapping and nonsense, or do you think some of this is actually plausible? Okay, just let me know in the comment section and let me know your arguments. But if you guys like the video, drop a like if you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.